I've got in my hand here a bottle of glass cleaner, something that people use to wash their windows, their mirrors, their windshields, and other glass surfaces. And when I turn it over and look at the bottom here, it says, caution, contents under pressure. And we know that pressure is there because if you take the lid off and push the button, the cleaner comes out. So welcome to Body Battles Part 6, and our title is called Contents Under Pressure. Reading that just reminds me of the pressure that so many of us are under on the inside. Blood pressure and stress and strain. So we're going to talk about that and how to relieve that pressure. My guest again is Jack McIntosh. He's been with me for 5 programs. This is number 6. We've got 2 more to go. And we're talking all about health and what we can do to help our bodies in the midst of the war that we're in with destructive forces and destructive habits that are trying to bring us down to an early grave. So Jack, again, thank you for coming up from Oregon with your wife Mary, being up here for a few days with us in the beautiful forests of Priest River, Idaho.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah, it's a blessing to have you. And as we get started, I'd like to read a text. I always like to start a program with a Bible verse. This is Psalm 23, one of my favorite Psalms. David wrote and said, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me to lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters," or the quiet waters, "and he restores my soul. He leads me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake." I can't tell you how many times I laying in bed at night, if I'm awake, I will just go through this psalm in my mind because it's just so calming. Yes. It just, it relieves pressure thinking about lying down in green pastures and the still waters. And here's one more verse. I like this one too. Psalm 37 verse 7 says, "Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him." God wants us to be at rest. He wants us to be at peace. He doesn't want us to be like this glass cleaner can.
Contents under pressure.
Yeah, contents under pressure. So talk to us about pressure, about blood pressure and the battle and how people can bring down those numbers.
Yes, all right. So we're going to talk about hypertension today. Hyper meaning too much. Tension, of course, that's the pressure in the arterial lines, the vascular system. So we're going to talk about that. What is hypertension? Well, most often in America, hypertension is caused by the vascular system becoming gradually occluded or blocked by substances on the inside lining of the artery. And as the artery narrows and narrows and narrows, the body compensates for that narrowing because it wants to deliver nutrients and oxygen in the proper proportions
to all the cells.
To all the cells that need it. And so in order to compensate for the narrowing, now you're getting less of those nutrients and oxygen, right? So the body compensates by increasing the pressure in the line, so to speak, the artery.
It's like the plumbing, like the body's plumbing.
The body's
delivering
plumbing.
all the blood to all the cells.
And
then when they get clogged, where they just start narrowing, then the heart has to pump harder.
To compensate for the narrowing.
Got it.
And so we get high blood pressure. Now the problem, of course, with high blood pressure is that it can result in a heart attack and it can result in a stroke. And so for that reason, we want to be able to properly manage hypertension and reduce it. Now, in order for us to get to the root of the problem, we really have to get to the reason why the arteries are being blocked, right? And very often that is a problem of the diet where we're eating lots of animal products, oxidized cholesterol, damaging the arteries, and of course laying down, for that injury, compensating for the injury, laying down a hard cover over that injury, and the the artery gradually getting smaller.
So the arteries get damaged, like in the last program we talked about the sugar.
Yes.
Too much sugar attached to the hemoglobin. It somehow damages the arteries. If there's damage, then the body plugs up the holes with plaque, right?
Yes. Now the body has a natural substance that controls the opening of the arteries. You know, arteries are not just pipes. They have muscles around them that can reduce the opening, or it can dilate and enlarge the opening. And the substance that our Creator has provided in the body to dilate the arteries and open them up, because when you open up the artery, what happens to the pressure in the line?
The pressure goes down, and
Pressure
the heart
goes
doesn't
down.
have to pump as hard.
Right? When we close reduce the opening, the pressure goes up. It turns out that there's a substance that our Creator has placed in the human body called nitric oxide. And nitric oxide is an arterial dilator. It dilates and opens up the arteries.
Okay.
Blood pressure comes down. Sometimes, because of our dietary habits, our lack of physical activity, the sweet drinks that we're drinking, and just all those lifestyle habits, we're not producing enough nitric oxide to dilate those arteries and open them up.
So can I just go to Walmart or Ralph's and buy a bottle of nitric oxide and drink it, and that'll open up my blood vessels and bring my blood pressure down and
not quite
solve my heart problems?
Not so much. So what we have to do is stimulate nitric oxide in the way that the Creator intended for us to stimulate nitric oxide. And one of the most powerful stimulators of nitric oxide is, you guessed, physical activity.
Lifting my legs. Like I knew that was coming. I knew it. So we just got to keep.
Yeah.
So when the body moves, like we talked about in the last program, it not only creates more insulin receptors, right? So the insulin can get the blood sugar into the cells quicker because now the muscles need it. But the cells also create nitric oxide as well.
Yes. I'll tell you a little story. I was at a nurse's symposium in Chicago, and the company that I was with, we have software for managing wellness programs, and so we were there to talk about our software. And various physicians, they have lectures, and the nurses go to these lectures and they learn all about the new science. Well, my friend Bob and I were going by one of those lecture halls, and we looked in, and there was a physician from Stanford University, Dr. Cook, who was lecturing, and one of the things he was talking about was nitric oxide. And he was talking about how he had a slide on the screen where he showed the cells, the endothelium cells, the lining of the artery. They produce the nitric oxide, a very thin lining of the artery. And he was showing the artery, the endothelium of an inactive person. And you could see the cells, and they were all jumbled up and disarranged, and not very orderly, if you will. And then they put that same person on an exercise program. And now, when you looked at the slide on the right, the picture on the right showed the cells, and very different. They're all lined up.
Wow.
And producing nitric oxide and dilating the artery, and of course, blood pressure comes down.
Really?
So that to me was a very strong visual impression that physical activity causes those endothelial cells to line up, yes, sir, and they start producing nitric oxide.
It impresses me that we need to line up.
Yes.
As we've talked about in this whole series, with our Creator's plan. That's why we're
absolutely.
reading the Bible. We went back to Genesis. We talked about how God made us to develop, to reveal His character, how He put man in a garden. He gave him good, healthy food from the soil, the Eden diet.
Yes.
He said, in the sweat of your face, you will exercise to help to balance out your life in the midst of a world of sin, now that sin has come in. So lining up with the Creator and with the plan, that's what will help us with the battles of the body.
Absolutely,
right?
absolutely. So we have to cooperate with our Creator in becoming physically active to produce that nitric oxide that's going to dilate and open those arteries and bring down that blood pressure. Now, let's talk about how nitric oxide is produced, because it's not just exercise. Something else has to be in the mix. And you guessed it, it's the dietary.
Oh, diet, okay.
Come right back to the Eden diet. Now, remember when the Lord said to Adam, gave him his diet in the beginning, and he talked about seed-bearing plants. So you don't eat seeds, do you?
I do. I sprout them. I sprout my seeds. I'm a big sprouter. I have a whole course teaching people how to sprout.
All right.
It's called Sprouting with Steve, sproutingwithsteve.com.
All right. Well, that's one kind of seed. But there are thousands of varieties of seeds in the world that our Creator has given us. And it just so happens that some of those seeds we call legumes, because black beans and garbanzos and lentils and all of those.
Yeah, I just had sprouted legumes today, lentils. Yeah. I grew my lentils in 2 days and put them on my salad.
Yeah.
As a sprout.
They're seeds. So when we eat those seeds, we get some raw materials. And it just so happens that one of the raw materials that you need, absolutely need, to make nitric oxide, to dilate your arteries and bring down your blood pressure, one of those raw materials that you need is something called L-arginine. L-arginine is abundant in lentils and garbanzos and, pinto beans and all those seeds, if you will, as it talks about in Genesis, those legumes, abundant. So if you're not getting enough and almost non-existent in the animal-based diet, so if you're eating a lot of meat and fish and chicken and all of that, and you're not getting those legumes, you don't have the raw materials to make sufficient quantities of nitric oxide
to dilate your your blood vessels
and bring
down the blood pressure.
So you've got to have the raw materials. L-arginine is the protein, the raw material that you need to make nitric oxide. Just like if you want to make water and you have only hydrogen, are you going to make water? No, you have to have oxygen. In the same way, the body needs L-arginine to make nitric oxide. If you don't have it, you're not going to make nitric oxide. Is
L-arginine in like sunflower seeds?
Yes, all those seeds.
And just a whole lot of seeds. People, I mean, you can, like, I know how to grow lentil. I take lentils. You can buy lentils at the market for $1, and you can put them in a jar, and you can fill the jar up with water and soak the seeds for 4 or 5 hours, and then pour the water out. And the lentils will have doubled in size because now they're becoming active. And then the next couple days, you just put some water in and rinse them. You just rinse them twice a day. And within 2 days, those lentils will grow up to the top of the jar, and you'll have lentil sprouts.
Yeah.
Which even I imagine they have even more what's it called?
L-arginine.
L-arginine. So, and then you just put the sprouts on the salad, or you cook the lentils, or you eat other seeds.
Yeah.
And so that's the magic key.
Sure.
To lowering the blood pressure.
Material. Yes, that's the raw material. So the combination of physical activity and the raw material, one thing, again, potentiates the other, makes it more powerful. And the result is that you have now raw materials and physical activity that's helping to produce the nitric oxide to bring down the blood pressure.
So it seems a little bit like with diabetes and diabesity, like you mentioned, when the blood sugar goes up because we're not exercising enough. And a lot of times people just turn to medication to try to bring it down, but it's not really dealing with the cause.
Yes.
It's not dealing with the root issue. It's the same thing is true with high blood pressure too. In many cases, or most cases, maybe not in every case, but in most cases, the medication is not. It's just dealing with the symptom, right? Whereas if we start dealing with the roots, and if we start exercising more and eating more whole natural foods, especially the seeds, then we can bring down that blood pressure without the medication.
Now, we need to cover one other thing here, and that is there is something out there that will actually shut down your nitric oxide production. Even if you have the L-arginine and you are somewhat physically active, there is something that will actually depress nitric oxide production. And what do you think it is? Take a guess, a wild guess.
Sugar?
You're on it. What kind of sugar?
High fructose corn syrup.
You got it.
Am I right?
You are right.
Wow,
You're right. You got it. High fructose corn syrup. Now here's what happens when we drink those sweet drinks that are so high in high fructose corn syrup. The high fructose corn syrup produces something called uric acid. And uric acid depresses nitric oxide production. So one of the drivers of hypertension in America are those sweet drinks, those high fructose corn syrup drinks. Your blood pressure will go up over time if you're drinking that and shutting down your nitric oxide production to dilate your arteries. This is a huge problem in America, and this is one of the reasons why 50+ million people have hypertension, high blood pressure, because they are depressing their nitric oxide production through this uric acid lever, if you will, and the result is the blood pressure is rising. It turns out also that high fructose corn syrup not only depresses your nitric oxide, but it causes a very dangerous fraction of LDL cholesterol called LDL-B, the very small, dense LDL cholesterol, bad cholesterol. That dense cholesterol can get under the endothelium into the artery and damage the arteries. And it turns out high fructose corn syrup stimulates that LDL-B production in the bloodstream. So it not only drives hypertension, it drives arterial disease, fructose, in the diet.
Aren't there other, am I wrong when I think I've heard that a high meat diet is also going to create
it has that LDL-B.
Uric acid, is that what it is?
Well, the LDL-B cholesterol is the dangerous one. You have two kinds of LDL. There's a larger one called A. It's kind of fluffy and relatively harmless. It doesn't do, any real damage. But that dense B fraction of LDL cholesterol is the one that can get under your endothelium, the lining of the artery, and go on the inside and do damage. So that's the one that is increased by high fructose corn syrup. So we have to be careful that we're not depressing our nitric oxide production and we're not driving heart disease by drinking those sweet drinks with high fructose corn syrup. And a little bit of history might be appropriate here. In 1982, the government basically told us, cut the fat in the diet. So Americans cut the fat. But what they did to compensate was they started drinking more sweet drinks. Sugar went up in the diet dramatically. And so we started adding it to everything from barbecue sauce to Gatorade, And so the sugar consumption went right through the roof. And so that super consumption, we supersize everything today. When Coca-Cola first came out on the market, it was a small, something like 11 ounce, I guess, or something like that, or I think it may have been even less than that. And now it's, these big 64-ounce things out there that people are drinking and creating this trouble in the human body. So
and those drinks are addicting, aren't they?
Yes, they are. They're addicting.
And don't you? I think that the companies that make them, they know that.
Well,
so
I'll tell you what they do in the colas, especially. Now this is interesting. They put salt in the cola. Now, why would you put salt in a cola drink?
To make you more thirsty to drink cola.
You got it. So you drink that, whatever it is, Coke, Pepsi, whatever the brand is, immaterial. and
Sprite.
instead of drinking water, but an hour later, that that salt makes you thirsty. And so what happens? You want another one, and you drink another one. And that's what's happening now. You're going down and down and, over and over and over until you really start to impact the body, shut down the nitric oxide or severely limit your nitric oxide production, driving that LDL-B cholesterol that produces heart disease and all that. And we're in it for real trouble later on.
Yeah, and, the Bible also talks about many things, but it tells us that it looks at the big picture and it says we're in a battle, we're in a conflict between good and evil. And there are forces that are working behind the scenes to promote a diet and drinks and practices that are really harmful to our bodies. They're not. We're not lining up with the Creator's plan. There are forces that are trying to derail us, to get us off track, so that we slowly destroy ourselves. And God is trying to bring us back, like Psalm 23 says, which I read at the beginning, where David said, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still waters. He restores my soul." Mm-hmm. So God's power is restorative. His word is restorative. When we pray and we ask for His presence and His help, He works to restore us. And then it says, He leads me in the paths of righteousness for His name's sake. He leads us in the path to do what's right, and the benefits of right doing, we reap those benefits in our bodies.
And we overcome these problems that are there. The prophet Isaiah said, "Why do you spend money for that which is not bread? Eat that which is good."
Right.
We need to do that. Pay attention to that advice. Eat that which is good. And in Romans chapter 12, it says, "Do not be overcome by evil." We look at the dietary practices out there, the inactivity. Those are all the things that amount to evil that affect us. It says, "But overcome evil with good." In other words, as a lifestyle interventionist, what I teach people to do is to put a good habit in place of a bad habit. Now, if you just stop the bad habit, guess what happens? 7 more bad habits come in.
Right? Yeah,
you know
gotta
that story.
replace the bad with the good.
So you have to put the good in place of the bad. That's the great principle of substitution. Mm-hmm. Overcome evil with good.
And isn't it true that as we make decisions step by step to move the body, even if it's just taking one walk,
yes,
and then we'll take 2 walks, and
right,
we'll walk again the 3rd time, and we'll eat an apple instead of the apple candy, and we'll drink water instead of the Coke. And if we just start making these decisions one by one, step by step, as the famous Chinese proverb says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step.
Sure.
Then we're training our brains, right? We're developing new patterns to help us to step by step improve our health and everything else.
Yeah. The average person out there who's not accustomed to walking, they may be intimidated by me when I say 30 minutes twice a day. Listen, when I counsel people, I tell them this: I don't care if you can't walk an hour. I'm not concerned with that, or even 30 minutes. I want you to just start.
Right.
Can you walk 5 minutes?
Right.
Yeah, I can walk. That's where you start, 5 minutes. But I want you in 2 or 3 days to go up by 1 or 2 minutes, because your body's tolerance for exercise is going to increase as you do it every day. So, the first day they go out 5 minutes and they come back and go, "I'm so tired, I can't." Next day we do the same, next day we do the same, but by the 3rd or 4th day now, I'm not quite so winded anymore, so now we go up by a minute, 2 minutes, and you do that until you get up to 30 minutes, then you stop.
Got it.
Now you go for 30 minutes twice a day. And
Right.
so we start gradually. That's how God works with us.
Yeah, it reminds me of a minister. I listened to him a long time ago, and he said, he was an old man, and he said, if God wants you to take 10 steps, and you're on step 1, he said, what's the most important step for you? And then obviously it's step 2. So God leads us then step 3, and we need to make these changes gradually, but we can do it. If we pray, if we read His Word, if we ask for help, if we learn the benefits of exercise and eating a good diet, more natural foods and getting sunlight, drinking water, the basics, our body will be blessed, and we'll be able to win many of these body battles that we're fighting every day.
It's true. It's sort of like the story of Jacob, when he's going back to his brother and back to the homeland. He said, you guys go ahead. I'm going to go with those who are moving a little more slowly here. And that's how God works. He works with us, We're moving slow, and He knows we can't go too fast here, so He just goes right along with us, helps us step by step, as you pointed out.
That's right. So as we get down to the end here, here's my glass cleaner. Caution, contents under pressure. We all need to be cautious of the forces in this world that are building up pressure and are trying to bring us down. And once again, Psalm 37, verse 7 says, "Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for Him." We hope that God will give you rest and relieve your pressure as you get closer to Him. Thanks for watching. We'll see you soon.
We hope you have enjoyed this episode of Body Battles. Before you go, these health resources are available from White Horse Media. First, our book, End Times Health War, which is loaded with life-changing information about the secrets of health, plus how you can supercharge your health by adding sprouts to your diet and by drinking organic fresh juices. If you would rather read smaller books, we have the same information in these little pocketbooks: Fabulous Health Made Simple, Surviving Toxic Terrorism, Juice Your Way to Fabulous Health, and Sprout Power. You may also be interested in these other wonderful pocketbooks: Help for the Hopeless and Secrets of Inner Peace. They're all short, easy to read, and easy to share. They are all available from White Horse Media.
We hope you've been blessed by this White Horse Media production. To support White Horse Media, please call us at 1-800-78-BIBLE. That's 1-800-782-4253. You may also send your donations by mail to White Horse Media, P.O. Box 130, Priest River, Idaho 83856, or donate online at whitehorsemedia.com.
Wait, before you go, and you know what I'm going to say, if you enjoyed this message, please like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. To hear more messages, check out our other videos. Have a blessed day.